Hello, everyone. My name is Annette Robertson, Director of Content Development at AVIXA, and welcome to our first Digital Signage Power Hour presented by AVIXA, Invitus, and 16.9. Like many of you in your own businesses, we're trying something new today to address these unprecedented times. So thank you all for participating today, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback on future topics and formats that are the most valuable. Before I hand the presentation over to the speakers, I have a few housekeeping items. For those of you viewing live, today's webinar qualifies for one CTS, CTSD, and CTSI RU credit. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view the credit on your transcripts. If you have any issues, please email us at webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have questions, please enter them into the Q&A window, only so we can address them at the end of the webinar. To access the Q&A window, move your cursor at the bottom of your live stream video box to locate the Q&A icon, and you can type away. You will have access to this webinar as a recording at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days. Our webinar today focuses on a timely issue for digital signage. How will customer engagement technologies work when touching screens is intimidating? So my co-host Dave Haynes from 16.9 and Florian Rotberg from Invitus will share their thoughts to kick us off. Florian will then present an industry update, and after that we'll have a roundtable discussion with our panelists, Brian McClymans, Pristine Screens Tom Milner, TSI Touches Gary Mundrake, and Intuit Faces Jeff Beeson. On to the webinar. Dave, I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Haynes. I write something called 16.9. It's a online publication and a podcast about digital signage. I've been doing that for forever. I wanted to use this as our first topic of discussion for these digital signage power hours. There will be a number of these leading up to June and Infocom timeframe. Because of all the things that are going on right now in my personal life, and I suspect in your own life, if you are out getting groceries or something, if you do self-checkout, you walk up to that self-checkout screen and you're looking at it thinking, I'm going to touch, and I'm not sure I want to touch that. So there's a way to go about this. There are things that can be done. There are alternatives and everything else, and we've got 4 great people to talk about all this. But before we dive into that, I wanted to hand this over to Florian Rotberg, who's in Munich, Germany, and he's going to give you kind of an overview of what's going on in the industry right now, industry sentiments and all those sorts of things. So Florian, if you want to jump on now with your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave, and welcome and good evening, everyone. And welcome. I want to give you a first update about what has happening in the past couple of weeks, and I also want to give you some insights about what has happened over here in Europe and how consumers are perceiving this new situation. So to start off with, the impact of COVID-19, the scenarios and actions, and this is really important because you see the different scenarios, how fast the new reality will come. And I'm sure you've seen that before. So I don't want to go too much into detail into VA and U-shaped things, but what's really important is when you look at the DS actions and the examples on the bottom. So we see when we look at the V-shaped thing, restaurants, DIY and banking are the easiest to come back. Food and home beauty and corporate communication, they will probably benefit from this whole crisis because supermarkets are quite popular, groceries, and corporate communication also needs to invest in signage. When you look at U-shape, that's fashion, lifestyle, electronics, automotive. For them, it will take a little bit longer because buying a new car is probably not first priority for most people currently losing their jobs or fearing to lose their jobs. The most difficult part is probably the L-shape, these airlines, travel, and hospitality. And to be honest, when we talk with experts in these fields, they are not doesn't look very promising for them for the next couple of months. And then education and healthcare, they are probably the biggest winner of this crisis, but unfortunately, it's very difficult to sell them currently something because education as well as healthcare, these guys are very busy, especially the healthcare guys who's doing other things, but they are in dire needs of some digital signage later on. And then everything service will take a bit longer. So we can always ask, what are the vertical markets you should focus first on? And as we are based here in Germany, and our lockdown just ended yesterday. So I mean, slowly, it's not a full release, but slowly the first shops are opening again. We're allowed at least to go to the office again. So the most essential one where we see the biggest demand for digital signage is grocery, obviously, and all the smaller shops in Germany and in Austria and some other countries. Only small shops are allowed to open, so everything until 800 square meters, that's 8,000 square feet roughly. So all smaller shops are allowed to open, the big guys are not, they still have to wait. Phase 2 will be services and restaurants. This will probably take another 4 to 6 weeks. And then we see education, healthcare later on, and the health sector. But what most of them are looking for is access control, because they have really tight regulations how many people are allowed to enter the shop floor. So for example, over here it's 20 square meter per one customer. That's not a lot. That's probably only a third of the people who were allowed before. So that's not a lot. So many of them are looking for digital signage solutions to manage access control, and obviously everyone's looking for contactless opportunities and communication. We always get asked, what's happening with the LCD, the ILCD, LED, and projector markets. And so we just give you a thought update. And a few weeks ago, when we planned the first time the seminar, we talked about, what about supplies? Supplies, it could be very difficult to get hold on products. Obviously, that's not our biggest concern anymore. So supply is sufficient, especially for the decreased demand we see worldwide. So there's enough, China is almost up to 80–90% again. So you can get LED, LCD, whatever you want. It's more or less available. Logistics is still a bit trouble, but at the end of the day, it's manageable. Obviously, what has changed a lot is demand. China is growing again. EMEA and the Americas, the markets are basically dead. They're stalled. And we see most replacement projects being postponed to next year. So the market outlook for the market grew 9%, the LCD market last year globally. And for 2020, it's a low to mid single digit growth. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4% more or less, but that's the maximum we believe we can achieve. ILCD education is a very special market. And we see a lot of interest in the education and corporate market for ILCDs. But to be honest, currently all the budgets are spent on desktop monitors and all the other stuff for the home office. So there's not much you need to expect from ILCD demand in 2020. LED, it's a different animal at 30% plus last year. 90% of all LED is produced in China, and 50% is also sold in China. So it stays in the country. And the experts from FutureSource and we talked with a few vendors, and most of them believe growth will be around the mid-teens. And last but not least, projectors. And that's probably the same with LED. The rental and staging market is dead. It's really dead, and we didn't expect to get any better until the end of the year or probably next year. So for them, it's really, really tough. Cinemas are dead too. And the big global sports events which have been canceled, the Olympics and everything, which also usually helps to sell projectors, everything has been canceled. So FutureSource believes, that in the first half, the projector market will drop by 60%. So that's very substantial. So you see all over, it's not a pretty picture. The whole market is probably growing like 1, 2, 3% or so. That's a maximum. But that's where we are, and hopefully next year will get better. But we also looked at consumer behavior, because the whole crisis, and we all know that because we are on our 7th week now at home, so consumer behavior changes a lot. So it's all about contactless nowadays. It's about collaboration. It's about mobile-enabled commerce, shifts in values. All of these things are changing. And I want to just focus on what's relevant for signage. And this is the quadrant which really, where we see the biggest changes. And talk about consumer restraints. Obviously, the budgets are very limited. New innovation and ideas are needed. And there's a drive for new simplicity. So when we talk about digital signage, it's about simple digital signage project concepts which are easy to deploy, and obviously also on the cheap side. Contactless, everyone talks about that. And when we talk about contactless, it's really important that you understand the full process of your customer. So it's not only the entrance, but many other ways where contactless is needed. And we see a push for non-touch technologies, more or less not replacing touch, but complementing it. And that's what our call and webinar today is all about. So what voice, gaze, gesture, all these other technologies which are available. Sustainability, it's a huge thing. Probably more over here than in North America, but we believe it will also come to North America. And we see lots of governments already now planning, their big fundings, which they plan, to give to businesses in fall. And it's all about sustainability. So I think, yes, we need to save jobs and we need to build up the economy again, but please make sure that it's sustainable. So it's not about greenwashing, but it's really about holistic, sustainable concepts, which are really, really important and become more important. And sometimes some things are quite small. So it's, sometimes you can even start with smart infrastructure. So do you really turn off the screens at night, and you make sure you have a switchable IP, things where you can manage remotely all your devices, and that's really, really important. Video communication, obviously, it's a no-brainer. And mobile-enabled commerce, it's not about everything moving to mobile, but really having a mobile device, as a remote control or as another thing to engage with a retailer or with the products in the store. On the left-hand side, you see a nice example. I'm not sure it's so nice, but that's what it currently looks like. So you have check-in terminals, and in the center, you have a sanitized station, where you can sanitize your hands, and you find gloves and everything, and a mouth mask and face mask and everything. Is this the future? No, this is just some interim thing, obviously, but people are scared of touching. That's absolutely the case, as Dave mentioned. So what's the new simplicity? The new simplicity, and this is really like a gold rush for the past 2 weeks over here in Europe, it's digital A-frames. Very simple, but very effective. So over here, when the stores are opening again, that's a requirement by the government, not only in Germany, but also in many other European countries, to have a digital system which controls how many people are in the store. And so this digital A-frame is very simple, has a sensor built in. It comes in various sizes and shapes, obviously, and it basically counts how many people are in there, and that you have to wait or you can enter into the store. And there's some challenges to it. We found out in the first couple of days that a speaker is necessary because some people don't look at the display. And the biggest problem, especially on the weekends, is tailgating. So, if only one person is allowed to go in the store and the whole family comes with it. So that's difficult because business can get huge fines over here if too many people are on the store floor. So on the weekends, you still need to have a security guard there. But in general, that's what everyone talks about. So the digital A-frames is really the big thing over here. And we have seen orders already in the 100,000s already this week. So the big retail chains are really buying them because it's mandatory. And we believe it could also come to North America pretty soon. And then you have the hand sanitizers, which few countries also put mandatory, that especially for staff, that you measure fever, for example, temperature, as well as sanitize your hands. So they're not so much into customer-facing things, but for staff-facing entries. That's the gold rush we set, and of the digital A-frames. And we did a short calculations, and digital A-frames usually sell for 2,000 to 3,000 euros. So add a little bit to dollar, but it's basically the same. And we found out that security staff, just one person, for 1 month, cost you more than a digital A-frame. So the payback in approximately 1 month, obviously, it's quite nice, and that's the reason why it's so popular over here. So what's the impact on technology? So we talk about complementing technologies to touch. Voice, especially PDAs, are quite popular. Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, all of this stuff that works okay. The biggest problem is that usually customers and consumers don't know that you can speak with your kiosk system or so, because they're not used to it. So you need big floor graphics, or you need promoters or so who teach the consumers, that they can speak with the order terminal and don't have to touch it if they want to. And eye tracking, gesture tracking, these are all things which are just complementing. But for few customers, it's a nice thing, and especially it's really without any touches, everything, and it works quite okay. So what else is booming? Data analytics, obviously, adaptation of AI platforms, connected journeys. It's now new digital experience platforms, especially APIs, how to connect your backend systems to digital signage, mobile in-store experiences. Enabling frontline employees, this has become very important, and not only digital signage companies and DXP providers like Adobe also working on this one, but especially also Microsoft with Microsoft Teams. They really try to promote this, even if it's not a full digital signage solution, but they try to promote this as a platform to enable frontline employees and get the valuable information on their devices, personal devices, and sustainability and technology choices. So this is just an introduction to where we currently are. And obviously, you know, we planned a big conference at Las Vegas. Unfortunately, it's not taking place, but we'll be part of IC20 Infocom Connect. So we will do stuff online June 16th to 18th, and hopefully to see you soon and see you next year live again in Orlando. So over to you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Florian. That was great. I wanted to kick this off by raising this with our roundtable, which is Jeff Besson from Intuiface, Brian McClimans from Peerless, Tom Milner from Service and Support over in the UK, and Gary Mundrake from TSI Touch. Gary, I'd like to float the first question to you because you are expressly in the touch business, and as Florian talks about contactless, this has to be a big challenge for your company.
It's not the best opportunity we've seen come down the pipe in a while. But that being said, it goes back to that little piece that I sent to you, and I'm going to sound redundant again. People are so used to touch. And if we watch the video here today, people will just touch their face probably here, not even thinking about it. People are so used to touch, I don't see they're going to radically shift that quick. And as I said earlier, when you think about all the interactions you'd have to get rid of just in an airport, you'd have to get rid of the check it, get your ticket, check your bag, find your way around the airport, order your food, coming back through customs, all those require touch screens. So I don't think touch is going away, and maybe I'm being optimistic. Obviously, we have a bit of a vested interest. But what I do think is we have to give users a safety net where they feel comfortable using it. And that's like the hand cleaners or the antimicrobials and those kind of things. But they have to be effective. And people have to be confident that they're going to work. And if they're confident they work, I think people will, you know, come back fairly quickly. If you look at a lot of big major events that impacted people's lives and said the world's changed forever, the ultimate change is not as significant long term. I think short term there's some, but I think long term the world will want to use touch, and they'll continue to touch.
I'm curious, from your perspective and also from Brian's and really everybody's, I have seen in LinkedIn and from emails that I get, as you might imagine, I get a lot of emails, companies promoting all kinds of different solutions that they say will resolve the issue of touching a screen or touching other surfaces, copper, UV lighting, everything else. Brian, is your company, because you guys manufacture display kiosks and enclosures and everything else, are you hearing from those kinds of companies, and are your R&D people looking at these sorts of things?
We've been meeting every day for 2 hours to discuss just what the new normal will be with kiosks. And as Gary said, I fully believe that humans by nature they want tactile touch. They want to shake hands. They want to be able to be next to other people. I don't think that the 2 months or so that we're working from home are going to change the 50+ years that I have of wanting to get out and touch people and
I thought you were 60 at least.
Parents and shake my dad's hands. I do believe that people will get back to that. Let's put it this way: we all drive cars. We get into the car. Guess what? Almost the entire car is driven by a touch screen. So you need to touch that screen. So even though everybody says we're going to be touching our phones more, my phone doesn't control my car. I think what I've learned over the past month and a half of working from home and going to stores is I have to be very aware of when I touch my face. So I'm always using hand sanitizers, and that is going to be the new normal. You're going to see a lot more sanitizers being attached to kiosks, so that way you can touch your hands. And it may even say on there on the front of the kiosk, sanitize your hands first before touching the screen. So it gives you that understanding of, hey, everybody, if everybody does that, or if I at least do that, I've now touched the screen and I'm doing it. Now, it'll be very important for folks like Gary to make sure that they have a protective glass over the display, because Gary already has all those, thankfully, because the display manufacturers, the front of the LCD glass is not protective enough, and I think it's going to need to be such that you have that protective layer on there. And I think we will get back to that normal where people are out there touching the kiosks and interacting with them, because I just think that they'll get better at it. They'll use pens that have these sensors on them, if they're more not used to it. But I do believe that they will change their way they're doing it, and we will have a lot more kiosks, from facial software to be able to sense temperatures, because that is going to be a requirement that's going forward in many businesses, is to take temperatures of the employees as they come up. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate over whether or not HIPAA laws are being violated when you send somebody home because their temperature is too high. So those are things that will all be worked out. But I do believe that we'll get back to touching the displays.
Tom Milner, you're over in the UK. You have a couple of companies. One is expressly in the business of cleaning public-facing screens using various chemicals, and so you know a lot about screens that are already potentially covered in gunk or pathogens or God knows what. What's your perspective on all this?
Honestly, I've got the same opinion as Brian. People want to touch. They want that feeling of interactivity, that they don't necessarily want to have to get their phone out of their pocket. They want to be able to, interact with a big screen in front of them and use it properly. The various different products that we offer can mitigate that considerably. I won't go into the details because that's unfair on everyone else. But we started our business 5 or 6 years ago on the basis that we just wanted screens to be cleaned because they just were starting to look horrible. When you actually get down to the nitty-gritty and you start testing the surfaces of these screens, they're even worse than you can actually predict. They're just quite disgusting. So actually, for us, this is kind of the golden goose now. This is entering into our direct sales that we always wanted, and people are actually wanting to understand it now, and for good reason, because there's a lot of snake oil out there that claims that it'll do things that, quite honestly, it won't. So, sorry, Dave, carry on.
What should people be watching out for when you say snake oil? I read something yesterday talking about enclosures that were coated in copper, and I thought, okay, well, this is interesting, but I don't know the science as to whether that's real or it just sounds sciencey, and therefore it must be good.
Well, there's lots of different ways that you can actually view the different surfaces, and predominantly the surface that all the guys on this panel actually deal with are glass surfaces with capacitive touch. So if you look at glass at a microscopic level, it's got pits and valleys in it that they basically harbour nasty bugs, bacteria, and pathogens. One approach is actually to apply coating that smooths out all those pits and cracks, and basically doesn't allow the nasties to actually adhere and grow in the way they would normally on an untreated surface. But this doesn't ever negate the need for pure and proper cleaning. This is the bit that, I'm not going to say that nobody cleans stuff out there, but they only clean it when they actually visibly see it's dirty. You could actually put any of our coatings on a screen, leave it to cure for half an hour. As soon as one person touches that screen, even if it's just one fingerprint, it's already carrying potentially bacteria, pathogens, and everything else that you need to wipe clean. So it obviously, in this day and age, it doesn't matter where the touch screen is. It could be an ATM machine in a bank, which are disgusting anyway. It could be a touch kiosk in a fast food restaurant. It could be a touch screen or a kiosk in a museum. The amount of cleaning now that is going to be required, but more importantly, the visibility that cleaning is taking place, that is what is important for all of us as potential suppliers to the outside world and the consumers out there, that they actually begin to trust. If they don't trust, they'll never use.
Uh, Jeff, you are with Intuiface. You're their, I believe your title is evangelist, which could be all kinds of things, but you wrote a piece for 69 recently talking about all the different kinds of alternatives to pure touch, contactless options, all the way from gesture to, I had a note from somebody talking about touch that was almost touch, but it was just hovering your finger near the contact surface and so on and so on. What do you see out there as having promise, or really, as the other folks are saying, it comes down to touch and then sanitizing your hands after?
I do think there is a generational aspect to this challenge. I think the older generation, I'm going to shake your damn hand, I'm going to touch the damn screen. For younger generations that are used to carrying their phones around in their pocket and constantly tapping away on that, if you gave them an alternative option to touching that screen, they might do it. And they're certainly going to be more open to alternatives if they're available. So there's a very generational aspect to this. One of the main alternatives is to use your personal mobile device to drive the content on screen. And that can be achieved. Typically, the scenario we've seen with our customers is using QR codes to open a web page that can then, through something like web triggers, remotely drive the content on the screen. So I'm touching the device I'm comfortable with, and I'm not touching this third-party thing that God knows what's on that screen. And it's a little like contactless payment, but it's contactless everything, right? Speech, of course, is another one. It's interesting, the world of accessibility, I think, is a resource for novel ways of engaging with an audience, because by definition, accessibility is accounting for an audience that is ill-equipped to perform certain types of actions in certain types of ways, which raises novel methods for interaction. But certainly mobile devices, certainly speech. If you've ever called a call center, it doesn't always work well. You want to make sure that it's not going to frustrate your audience. But those seem to be the major ones right now to sort of offload it. There's also, there's other RFID readers and this sort of thing, but then that presumes you're already equipped with something, And to that end, as Tom was saying, you've got to have a visible cleaning schedule. You have to assume that some people, be damned, they're going to touch that screen at a protest, if nothing else, but have the hand sanitizer stations, have a very obvious cleaning schedule, but giving people the option. Some people will never touch a screen again, right? Some won't. They'll be very afraid. I have a 9-year-old son. We've been Purelling him for 9 years. So it's not new to us to be doing that sort of thing. If you give them options like using a mobile device or using speech or maybe some sort of head gesture movement to interact, people are going to use it. They will use it.
I'm curious, particularly for the hardware guys, if there are touchscreens and other displays out there in the public right now in retail, airports, mass transit hubs, whatever it may be, there's some peril to how these screens are cleaned, is there not? If you're using the wrong stuff, it can fog the glass. It can basically murder a screen, right?
Yep.
Well, I think it depends. There's two parts to that. As Brian alluded to earlier, virtually every touchscreen solution, independent of the manufacturer, has a protective cover glass on it. And if it's truly glass, it's not an acrylic or a polycarbonate, you have to have some pretty wicked clean around there to damage glass. So I don't think that's the great concern. Unprotected screens are typically not within reach of a consumer, because if there's a screen in reach of the consumer, it's going to get touched. Now there's a lot of non-touch screens out there that just have protective glass on them as well, because they're accessible by consumers. They're not designed for touch, but just to protect them. And again, they are relatively easy to clean. As Tom said, there's ease of doing and actually doing it, and that's why. I believe that you'll see. We get inundated literally every day with companies out of Asia that have the built-in hand screen cleaner, dispenser, sanitizer combo pack. My belief is the install base out there is so big, and going forward, people don't want just a 22-inch touchscreen with a dispenser under it, that it's going to be equipping those screens with hand sanitizer or hand cleaner. And even those little things, if you use the word hand sanitizer, you have to have FDA approval to use that term. And to get that approval is not a trivial task. So when companies are coming out saying, here's your hand sanitizer, unless they have FDA approval, they're actually false advertising. And right now, the federal government, the FDA, has said, you can call pretty much anything a hand sanitizer right now. But we're going to come back and tell you when you can't anymore. And they're going to pull a lever. So all these hand sanitizer stations that are deployed all over, at least in the US, are all of a sudden going to become what? Because they're going to be labeled hand sanitizers. So what are they now? And all that inventory is now useless. So
Cleansers?
they're going to become worthless. So we as a company, I mean, and we've talked about this publicly, we're going to provide hand cleaner stations that can backfit to existing screens, or going forward to new screen deployments. We believe that the demand is big enough that we've already ordered 16,000 units of it. So we think the demand's there, and people, if they can go up, they can put a hand cleaner on their hand, then touch the screen, then prior to leaving the screen, take another hand cleaner again. Even if the screen's disgusting and Tom hasn't convinced them yet to put an antimicrobial coating on it, their hands are going to be clean. And it goes back to the idea, would you rather, put 2 squirts of hand sanitizer, the Perel world's used to it, or would you rather stand in a line to talk to somebody that's talking to people all day long? I think they're going to go for that hand cleaner station over and over again and rapidly adapt to it.
And that sanitizer, putting that on your hands and then blinking away at the screen, that's not going to affect the screen because it's already protective glass?
That's correct.
Okay.
Brent,
go ahead, Tom.
It's going to be a horrible experience if they've not wiped the hand sanitizer off the hands properly. Then it's going to be a horrible experience for the next customer.
Why is that?
Well, because you'll have left some of the hand sanitizer on the screen, and that's actually a more visible way of showing somebody else has touched that screen before you did.
So part of the track loop or the messaging on the screen should probably be something saying, the hand sanitizer is available after you blink away at the screen, and then clean your hands, because you're going to do it twice for no good reason.
To use it afterwards, and obviously don't touch your face or anything else in the meantime.
Right.
Use the hand sanitizer after the fact. Then you're not actually creating a bad experience for the next user. Because what are they going to have to do in a fast food restaurant? They're going to have to ask somebody to come over and clean it for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, more to that point, we're seeing in the sort of casino industry and the self-service industry, more and more that actually, especially in sit-down gaming machines, that they're basically going to, connected to the game player's card that they typically will put into the machine to be able to play. It will basically, as soon as that card is ejected, when that player has finished playing, the casinos are actually intending to actually effectively stop that machine from being in use until a cleaner has actually been around to clean it. That's how far the casino industry is going on this, because they want to protect their customers now.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of our casino customers as well, and they want to get this right. They know if they have one chance of getting this right when they come back and making people feel comfortable again, because they have to shut down and furlough their employees yet again. Their employees just won't come back, nor will their customers. So you're right, they are going to that nth degree to make sure that they've got the right product for them. And we are talking to them exactly like what Gary was saying, is doing a hand cleaner in a sense on the kiosk prior to the customer using it, and also to sense thermals as well.
Yeah. I also have to imagine, does there have to be some sort, I would imagine you would need a sensor for the volume of hand sanitizer that's left. I mean, if you want to get somebody upset, promise them sanitizer, have them use the screen, and then find out it's empty, right?
Right.
So
So there's a solution to that. Use a clear bottle of sanitizer. You can tell when it's empty. I mean,
Well,
it's
it's straightforward.
a
Make
low-tech way to do it, yeah.
right. There's also sensors. There are sensors in some of them that can tell how many squirts you can get out of a gallon of, you know, non-touch sanitizer, and it is about 9,500 of them. So, you know, there's quite a few. And then
I think if you go back to the casino argument, casinos are loaded with screens, and they're loaded with slot machines. They're also loaded with blackjack tables. Unless we're going to make every one of our cards, I don't know, sanitized.
The chips.
We're going to
That's
stop
what we're gonna do, Gary.
stop playing blackjack. We're going to stop playing roulette. We're going to stop going to Vegas.
I was with somebody yesterday, and that is what their intention is. They're actually going to have 2 dealers per table now. One handles the cards, and the other one handles the chips.
To be honest, it's very interesting what they also do now in fashion retail, because in the fitting room, you have to sanitize the fitting room after each person went in there. So they have to close it, they have to sanitize it, and the clothing they try on, they don't buy, they have to sanitize and store for 48 hours before they can put it back into the store.
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, the world is going to go mad on this.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be in self-protect mode themselves. The corporates out there, the retailers, they're going to be, you know, not wanting to get sued by anybody. You know, they're going to want to protect their own employees. Obviously, they've got a duty of care there. You know, I think our responsibility, you know, we're all here something to do with touchscreens, but obviously the digital signage platforms that are out there, they can build it into their platforms that actually they can, you know, put a timer on their screen so that actually they're almost forcing the retailers to put a clean on it. You know, or it could be based on the amount of touch. You know, I'm sure that there is, and you know, we're talking to one company at the moment that's doing something really quite exciting, which I can't share unfortunately because I'm under NDA. But you know, when you're talking about measuring the volume of traffic and the specific areas of the screen that it's going to, then that's it taking a step further. But I think as a whole, you know, whether it's the Digital Signage Federation in the US and the rest of the world, or the other organization that I can't remember the name of, you know, they actually need to take the lead to whoever it is and actually, you know, enforce upon them that they actually have a responsibility. They probably realize that already, but, you know, we need to help them realize the safest and easiest and most cost-effective way of doing it. Because no matter what, I look at Gary, I look at Brian, I look at Jeff, and we're going to carry on selling this stuff because we know it works. We know it works. And, you know, do I really think that the consumers are going to take a massive change? No, you'll actually get disengagement from it. You know, if you force them down a blind alley of only using voice, people will just refuse to talk to this stuff, and they'd rather go and talk to a person. Now, if we're all under social distancing, how will that help?
Mm-hmm. Brian, I'm curious, because your company makes a lot of outdoor displays and indoor displays, kind of street furniture stuff. Have you historically looked at the other options out there, like gesture, like voice, and other ones? Has there been a marketplace demand for it up until now?
You know, it's interesting. We actually have done some gesture-based touch, and it's just not intuitive for customers to use. We've tried stickers on the ground, we've tried visual cues and how to use it, but it's just not intuitive. I mean, I think we are humans by nature, are touch enabled. You know, we want to get out there. If you follow any mother around with a 1-year-old, it's just learning how to crawl, walk, and they're literally following them around because the kid's always putting something in their mouth. You're not going to stop us. Humans come out and they want to touch. That's how we learn. And I think that the gesture-based touches are the biggest challenges with those is user interface, as far as understanding how to use it in generational. I think the audio, I do believe that audio-based touch solutions will be, or at least audio-based interactive solutions are something that we are exploring at this particular moment, because the general population is all staying at home and working from home, and you have to be very careful when you say certain words in your house, because all of a sudden your, .com product that's sitting on your desk is going to start talking to you. And I think we're all used to doing that now. I've gone to the point where I don't even pick up my phone and look up information anymore. I immediately ask one of my my audio-based solutions, what the answer is. I don't know. It's just something to do. I guess one more person to talk to, or I think it's a person.
I do want to second Brian about gesture. Any finite small gesture, historically I found any software or hardware supporting that, it's very sensitive, it's very picky, you have to be trained to be accurate. If you remember Leap Motion, for example, our software used to support it, but we stopped because you had to have the perfect fist, you had to have the perfect point, and it just didn't work. 2-point, that's right. But for voice, on the other hand, and again, accessibility is a good example. I mean, that's already happening, right? People talking to the screen talking back to them. Lots of systems now that support that, enabling you to connect that to on-screen events and events related to the content. So it's all ready for us to adopt. It's just maybe we have a new incentive to do so because of the current pandemic situation.
But there's a lot of technical challenges when you get outside of a relatively serene environment like somebody's kitchen or office or whatever, to use a personal assistant there, versus being in a busy airport terminal or shopping mall concourse and having to somehow have your voice picked up by this display with your question, whatever it may be.
And language is also going to be a barrier to the audio-based solutions. Obviously in Europe and Asia, it's going to be a challenge with multiple languages. North America might be a little bit easier just because of the communication there, but you may have some challenges with that. You're absolutely right.
Gary, you when the pandemic first started bubbling up, you started looking at different technology options out there, tested them and discarded a lot of them. Can you walk through kind of what you looked at and why?
So we've been looking at technology because, the Purell generation, right? So how do we give people comfort that the screens are clean? And prior to the pandemic, it was more of an upsell. Oh, by the way, it has this capability. With the pandemic, obviously it became a little bit more focused. So we've looked at everything from coatings, antimicrobial coatings, antimicrobial films, antimicrobials, everything. And the antimicrobials, if they're truly antimicrobial, and they're not the snake oil as somebody referenced earlier in the chain, if they're truly antimicrobial, they're great at killing bacteria that's deposited on the screen. The drawback to them is it kills them over time. So, Tom, you're shaking your head.
That's the wrong description, Gary.
Well, let me finish, then you can argue with me. How's that? Let me finish, then you can argue with me. Every test report I've received from a lab where they've been tested, they apply pathogens to a sample, to a little piece of glass. Then they test how long does it take for that pathogen to die away. So in other words, to stop spreading and disappear.
It inhibits growth. That's
Okay.
what the current generation of coatings do, and nothing more. And that's
unfortunately, if you have a touchscreen where people are using it continuously, it just won't grow more. Your argument is it won't get dirtier than it already is.
No, that's not what I'm saying at
But
all.
after 24 hours, the test reports I've read say that it does eliminate the pathogens. 24 to 72 hours, they die off, maybe because they can't reproduce, they disappear. But the problem is, if I walk up and touch a screen and I'm infected, the person walking up behind me and touches that exact same icon, and the next 50 people do it, you're not instantly killing that pathogen. That pathogen is there, and it continues to be there. So while again, Tom, I'll put myself on mute and let you talk all you want after I'm done. While I believe there's a place for them, but when we go out and we sell something, we do a lot of business. I mean, the reason we're still manufacturing is because we do a lot of work in the medical environment. when we go out, we sell something to our customers or offer it to them, we have to provide facts and data that's documented. And it has to be not a wink and a nod, antimicrobial. Well, yeah, you're still building up bacteria on the screen, but the antimicrobial, once you clean it, will do something. So it may be there, we just haven't seen it yet. UV lights, we looked into UV lights. UV lights will kill things. They also burn your eyes and melt your skin. So not really, not really the right
Big deal.
Gary,
for
using
the
it.
distinction that you're looking for here is the difference between something that inhibits growth and should always actually be used in conjunction with cleaning. When the next generation of coatings that are coming along, we're already looking at these products today, is something that actually will deliver something called a mechanical kill without any interaction. That's your golden chalice. That's what you're looking for, but it's not available today. So, if anyone's given you an impression that coatings or a thing that goes on the screen will actually kill bacteria, that's not what the test reports tell you. They tell you that it inhibits growth. That's all it does. It's the clean that actually will kill the bacteria.
And even the mechanical method, Tom, it's invisible though. I don't know if it's working or not, right? In this fantasy mechanical treatment, I can't tell, right?
I know for a fact, Jeffrey, some of them don't. We've had them tested. We've sent them out to independent labs, and they've come back with zero ability to inhibit growth. So some of them do, I'm certain.
Actually, what I meant is, as a user of the kiosk, can I tell by looking at it if it's clean or not?
Sure, but as a solution provider, it's even worse. If we're providing you a solution that we claim to be antimicrobial and it's not, to me, that's the fastest way to go out of business.
Yeah, round up the lawyers.
Customers.
If you're actually saying something is antimicrobial, you're not actually saying that it's killing the nasties. You're saying that it is actually inhibiting the growth. That's pretty much the pure definition of what antimicrobial or antibacterial or antipathogen means. It is something that will actually put a barrier up against it and inhibit the growth. It will not kill. And Gary, please go back and look at the test reports that you've got, because none of them will say that they kill it, because they don't.
No, what they will do is, because they stop the growth, they'll die out over their cells.
Absolutely.
Lack of feeding. So in 24 to 72 hours, the screen will be clear of pathogens. The issue that I have trying to explain to an end user is, if you apply this antimicrobial and it'll stop it from growing, that's great. And if I leave it at that, people go, oh, okay, my screen's clean. But I'm just stopping it from growing. So if I have 50 people in a row touching the exact same corner of the screen, am I reducing the spread of pathogens with that antimicrobial? That's a yes or no question.
To a degree, yes.
Right. So to a degree, but it's not eliminating pathogens.
No, because that's only achieved by mechanical kill. And
clean your hands first. Clean hands.
Yeah.
So and that's where I say it's an add-on. It's not the primary way. Jeffrey said he doesn't. How do I even know it's there? I have a sign up, and then if it is there, it says, well, yesterday's germs are no longer alive. This morning's, yeah, they're still here. Today's, they're still here. This afternoon's, they're still here. But yesterday's germs are gone. That just doesn't work. And maybe it's just me. It just doesn't work for me to tell a customer, you'll be safe tomorrow. There'll be no more germs on this screen.
And I would posit that it's actually more dangerous to invest in something like that than to do nothing at all. Because at least if I do nothing, then I'm not making any promise that you won't get sick if you use my kiosk. If I actually make the claim that you won't get sick and something goes wrong, now I'm liable. So it's a very dicey approach, I would imagine.
What are we saying, guys? That actually everyone who's got a touch kiosk or anything like that around the world, they should just switch them off until there's something else that can be used.
No. I don't think
clean your hands first.
What
clean
we're saying
first and actively clean the screens.
Clean the screens, clean your hands, provide hand cleaner at the point of use.
Yep.
And
No,
the antimicrobial products
It's
are,
wrong, Gary. It's wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the hand cleanser there, but if people use it before they use the screen, they will leave residue on the screen, and then it's a horrible experience for the next person. Unless you've got
I mean, the hand cleaners, I'm sorry, I can't use that word sanitizer. Hand cleaners, most of them are about 75% alcohol.
Yeah.
And if you look at the actual ingredients, the other 25% is water.
Right.
If you're using a lotiony, I didn't say use a hand lotion,
Right.
use a hand cleaner.
Right.
If I put it on my hands right now, it's dry in about 2 seconds.
No, not a chance. Because do you know what people do when they actually walk into stores? They put their hand on the top and they go squirt, squirt, squirt. So they've covered their hands because they want to protect themselves. They don't care about anyone else.
Okay.
So they
That's a
get
gel-based. That's a gel-based solution. There's spray-based solutions that literally is like Gary was saying, within 2 seconds it's dry.
Well, then we've got the same argument. We've got the same
I have
argument.
it sitting on my desk. I use that. I have it sitting on my desk. I'll show it to you again.
But we've got the same argument, guys. What,
But you know,
what proof have you
my
actually
hand
got?
is wet. It'll be dry.
Somebody who actually has to press the button on the top of a unit is actually going to have clean hands compared to the next guy. There's nothing that you can
Right.
prove.
You're going to see those ones go away. They're not, the touch-based sanitizers will go away. It's the sensor-based spray solutions.
Dispensers will come, automated dispensers.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Tom, if we had an antimicrobial coating that we could apply to our touchscreens that was effective and passed testing, and said it actually did something besides prevent yesterday's germs from continuing to grow, I can assure you I would have it everywhere. I've got a lot of samples in from a lot of vendors with a lot of claims. They market it as cleaning your screen with an antimicrobial. But as you just eloquently said, it doesn't clean your screen. It doesn't even kill germs on it. It just inhibits growth of some pathogens,
And
which is great. But unfortunately, in the hospital, they don't want to inhibit the growth of pathogens. They want to eliminate the pathogens.
Mhm.
If you just tell them, well, it'll kill them over a day or two by starving them, it just doesn't, our market just doesn't work for it.
We had a question about touchscreen tips and sticks at the kiosk. If these were disposable items that you could use, kind of like the end of a pencil or what Brian had, though that sounds expensive.
And it's trashy. I mean, if you go into the local grocery store, at least where I go every Sunday afternoon, now once a week, you see the ones that have the wipes, you know, you can pull out the little towelette and stuff like that. And so you got a little towelette there, and then they got a little trash can. So what you've got is a pile of towelettes piled up around the bottom of a trash can. I mean, it's just horribly unattractive. I don't see that working. Now, if people are using IR touch solutions out in the public space, they can take their pen out of their pocket and use it as a touch. They don't have to actually physically touch the screen. IR touch solutions will work with anything that breaks that barrier. So if you're traveling through just about anywhere and you got a pen in your pocket, you can take your pen and use it it'll work.
Or gloved hand.
Or a gloved hand or anything. It'll work with the IR touchscreen without an issue. Now, if you stick it hard enough, maybe it'll break it, which will be okay for us. We'll sell more, but not really where you want to go with this webinar.
This has been a great discussion. We're running out of time. I wanted to ask one final question of each of you. You end up in a conversation with a customer or an industry colleague, and they say, look, we're really struggling with all of this. What should we do? What's that one piece of advice that you would pass on? And I'll start with Brian, just to put him on the spot.
Nope. Oh, you're on mute, Brian.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. In the touch world specifically?
Yes.
My suggestion is that you continue to provide touch solutions to your customers because people want it. They want to be able to interact with touch. We've been living in this world for all this time. 2 months is not going to change all of our perceptions. Everybody's going to learn not to touch their face, because you can't get sick just through your fingers. You have to then touch your fingers to your face or your eyes. So everybody knows to wash their hands afterwards. So even if they, I hate to say this, touch a dirty kiosk, then you hand sanitize afterwards, you've got clean hands. You've cleaned that germ off of it. So I do believe that the human element will come back. We will want to touch the displays again, because again, like I said before, you get in and you touch the car, you touch the everything. How often do people clean their cell phones? I clean mine once a day. I don't think everybody still cleans their cell phones every day. I think people will engage with touch. So don't get afraid. It will come back. People will come back to touching the displays.
Tom.
Just to reiterate my point, it's not just about cleaning. It's about visibility of cleaning. It's about using the right products. And if there's a means to actually apply a coating that will inhibit growth and actually prevent the need for so much cleaning, because that's what all these corporates and retailers are going to be worried about. What is the cost of all this? How are they going to keep all this stuff going and you know, keep it manageable while also protecting their employees and staff? So anything that you can do to mitigate that, you should be exploring, but make sure that you've got it backed up with test data that you can understand. Some people don't understand it.
Yeah. Jeff Besson.
I would first tell them not to panic. As everyone else is saying, touch is not going away. They should also be proactive. We can all relate to attitudes people will have towards touchscreens. We're in the same boat. Having very visible means of cleaning what I control. The screen is out of my control, but I control my own hands, for example. So sanitizer stations, on-screen messaging about good hygiene and good practices, don't touch your face, having visible cleaning schedules, being proactive to let people know that the things they can control, they will be able to control when they use your screen. It's something they can be proactive about and manage.
And Gary.
So I'm going to agree with Tom.
Hey!
On a few points. Don't trust what the salesman tells you. Do your research. Make sure you're not violating the rules. Do show visible signs that you're actually cognizant of what's going on. That the screens are either getting cleaned or there's a way to clean yourself when you engage with them. We all know the world needs more touch. We're going to have more touch. But your customers just need to be proactive. And I do believe, tragically, for good or bad, when the vaccine comes out or the mitigator, the treatment comes out, people are going to forget quick. I mean, we all travel frequently. You go through airports every week. How many people washed your hands in the bathroom?
Not enough.
Not nearly enough. I mean,
No.
not nearly enough.
It's terrifying.
And they don't wash their hands after wash. They walk into the dirtiest place in the building. They don't wash their hands. They see a touchscreen. They want to get from gate A1 to B37. And they got two choices: touch the screen or run around and find somebody to tell them how to get there. They're going to touch the screen.
Great. Florian, any last thoughts from you?
No, it's for me, it's really about understanding the consumer's way, how they behave, how they think, and also how it fits into operation. Because we talk about all these great things, but I fully agree with most of them. It's about visibility. It's not about technology. It's about visibility and making sure that the customer feels and the consumer feels comfortable with using the touch points.
All right. This has been a terrific conversation. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to do this, and for the audience for spending the time to listen in on this. We're going to be doing this some more in the coming weeks. So thanks again. And Annette, did you want to jump on with any final any housekeeping stuff you need?
Yes, thank you, Dave. And thank you to our audience so much for joining the first Digital Signage Power Hour. So the recording from this session will be available on avixa.org/webinars in about 5 business days. And your 1 RU credit will be applied to your transcript within 5 to 7 business days as well. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@avixa.org. A huge thank you again to Tom, Gary, Brian, Jeff, and of course to Dave and Florian for this conversation today. We hope you enjoyed and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.